Hi everyone. We had a long day. This is about to end. So very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Adrian. I'm the program director of VISA, Vietnam Innovative Startup Accelerator. So I'm not Vietnamese. I'm from Singapore. I moved there 8 months ago with my family. I packed my bags, 3 little kids, and my wife, and we moved to Ho Chi Minh City. Okay. So before that, I was the program manager at JFDI Asia, one of the earliest accelerators in Southeast Asia, based in Singapore. And before that, I was actually a startup founder that was in the first batch of JFDI. So I really learned about being a founder, the difficulty of being an entrepreneur, that my startup failed. And many years later, I wrote an article on E27 about my failure. And that's how I got the job to Vietnam. So somebody called me up, say, hey, would you want to come to Vietnam to start an accelerator? And it's a very enriching experience, the journey. It's certainly not easy, but I would like to take this time to also share a little bit about my new home, right? So I'm based in Ho Chi Minh City. So many Singaporeans ask me, why Vietnam? Right? Why do you want to move to a country that's supposedly not as comfortable as Singapore? Well, I tell them this, I was too young when China opened up. But Vietnam, right? I mean, it's kind of similar. Okay, they don't like to hear that, but it's communist, and then it's opening up for a lot of economic investment. It's growing at a very fast pace right now. And there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of energy. So when I first went there, just a quick story, I first went there in 2011, right? 2011, just only six years ago. And at that time, I couldn't even use Facebook, right? Facebook was banned, right? And now everyone is on Facebook, right? Facebook is LinkedIn, for them. So first thing you do, what's your Facebook? Can I add you on Facebook? And the pace of the development is really, really fast. And many visitors to Vietnam would also say that there's this energy, right? There's this energy that there's very infectious, that you feel that everyone is just very optimistic. Maybe because 50% are under the age of 30, right? So almost everyone is younger than me, right? So it's a very exciting place right now. Well, you may think that, yes, the traffic is really, really bad, right? It's very confusing. You don't know how to cross the road. It really got me. It took me 5 times before I dared to ride a motorcycle, okay? So, but there's a method to the madness, right? And just to put things into perspective, I was complaining about why people drive that way until I realized that 15 years ago, it's not allowed for people to drive a car, right? So only the government officials can drive. And that means I had my driving license longer than most of the 92 million people in Vietnam. So that's a very interesting perspective. Now, why VISA exists? So if you kind of follow a lot of macroeconomic insights into Vietnam, if you kind of look at Southeast Asia, you realize, yes, it's a big market, but the challenge is it's very fragmented. You have countries that are very different at different stage. But if you look at Vietnam, it has 92 million people. It's fast growing, middle class, right? Fast growing. 6 years ago, I go to like a mall, right? Really high-end mall. There was nobody, right? Now it's like it's really packed, right? People are there, they're buying, they're shopping, and you see everyone having an iPhone. And I'm wondering, how can they afford an iPhone? It's just simply amazing. They work really, really hard. They have the drive. Second thing, in Southeast Asia, they are the powerhouse for software development, right? No matter whether you're a startup in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, or Thailand, you come to a point where you realize, man, I cannot hire a software engineer because number one, it's either too expensive or I can't find them. So where do they go? They go to Vietnam. 60,000 engineers graduate every year, right? Not just that, they send 100,000 students overseas for university, okay? 100,000 of them. And another secret weapon is the returning diaspora. The people who have left the country in 1975, Due to the war, they left as refugees. They come back with MIT, Stanford, Harvard degrees, and they said, I want to start a company in Vietnam. And that is really, really inspiring for me. So over the last 8 months, spending time there, I have met founders, right, who told me they left the country at the age of 3. They were a refugee. They were rejected by Singapore as boat people. They got picked up by an Italian battleship, ended up at MIT, right? And then coming back. So it's just a really inspirational story for myself. So a lot of funds are very interested in investing in Vietnam, right? A lot of Southeast Asian funds in Singapore, they really, really want to put in money into Vietnam. But the question is, it's difficult because there is a lack of transparency. There's not a lot of deals that are disclosed, so it's very hard for people to trust. So that's why VISA exists. So we felt that there was a need for an accelerator right now in Vietnam to kind of plug the gap, going very early stage, finding out who the good founders are, what the good ideas are, what have been tried, what have failed, right? Which government official is supportive, right? What else do they need to really grow this system? And to also develop legal processes. So we ourselves are a startup. You know, going in there, starting it out, we don't know, you know, there's nothing such as a convertible note, right? So how do we do that? We have to create it ourselves with our legal partners and friends. So we aim to plug the gap and really find who the good founders are and then develop the deal flow from there. So as I said, fast-growing middle class, digital population, and availability of technical talent. These are some of the key drivers for the growth in Vietnam. So this is a typical scene everywhere you go in Ho Chi Minh City, right? You got 92 million people, as I shared with you. There are 43 million motorbikes, okay? So it's a lot of motorbikes. I know Taipei has a lot, but I think in terms of density, Ho Chi Minh might have even more at the moment. So our friends at Topica Founder Institute compiled this ecosystem map. You can easily search it and find about it. It's a very early stage right now. Coming from Singapore as a founder, I've seen it, Singapore grow maybe 5 to 6 to 8 years. I think Vietnam is moving at a faster pace than before. So really excited. There's a lot of interest in Vietnam. And we got a lot of support from VC funds that are looking at Southeast Asia. So a little bit about who created VISA. So these are the 3 shareholders. They all each invested $2 million US into VISA, and they are FPT, one of the largest IT companies listed companies in Vietnam. Dragon Capital, it's a it's a private equity fund, right, that invests in Vietnam. So they run a few funds, and one of their funds that invests in Vietnam is listed on the London Stock Exchange called VIEW, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation actually owns 11% of that. So it's a really excellent private equity company. And our next investor is Hanwha Investment. They are a conglomerate that's from Korea, and they have also invested in VISA. So with this, we aim to invest in over 100 global-ready startups, right, over the next 5 years. Now, we don't need the startups to be Vietnamese, right? As long as you have a Southeast Asian focus, if your plan is to go south, right? We can be one of your partners to really help you accelerate your ideas for the Southeast Asia market. Now, how do we work? So our goal is literally crowdsourcing the team. So we started very lean. It was just me. Just 8 months ago, moving in there, growing a team now to 6 people. We graduated our first batch. We invest at for our first batch, about 150 teams applied. We chose 7. We invest 30K worth of investment into them. 15K US is in cash, and 15K is in kind. It's really our training, our office accommodation, and all the resources that the other accelerators have also mentioned. We also support them. And you go in person in Ho Chi Minh City, right? And out of all the companies that we invest, after 3 months, they do an investment day. And if each investor gets, each startup has an indication of interest from an investor, we will do a follow-on funding up to 200,000 USD, meaning they need to have somebody come in and say, I want to invest in this startup, and that will trigger us to do our own follow-on. So we want to double down into these companies. Next, we are also wanting to do a bit of venture building from next year onwards, meaning we love to work with big corporations to think about your strategies in startups to conquer the Southeast Asian market. Why? It's really difficult, right, for corporates to innovate fast, and launching small little startups is kind of like, you know, having your small little boats go look for a treasure island. It's cheaper. If it dies, you know, it's okay, you learn, right? If it fails, if it succeeds, then you bring your whole big aircraft carrier towards that, right? So it's kind of a way that we have learned to kind of scale up in Southeast Asia. So I think a lot of people have talked about this. These are some tools we use. You know, lean startup, design thinking. However, we want to tweak it to Asian kind of, you know, Asian kind of culture, right? So you can't really do your customer discovery like you know, Eric Ries tell you to do. You know, go to a customer, ask him what's your problem, right? Like we don't do that in Asia, right? It's like, what's your problem? I got no problem. So you got to tweak your methods to kind of suit the different cultural context in Asia. So this is what we do typically. We are starting, we just selected for batch 2. We're going to really start, actually remove it a month later because there was a lot more queries, but we just sorted it out. So we're going to start next week for batch 2. Really excited about it. We are looking at about 12 companies. So yeah, and we have no vertical focus. We are agnostic. We just want the best startups, and we love to invest in them. So some are mentors. We have local heroes, you know, people who've done startups before, regional heroes like Hiengo from NSI Ventures, investors, and domain experts like people like Sun. He is a Vietnamese but works in IBM in Singapore, who wants to contribute back to his country. So some of the typical sessions, we're really like getting the startups to be mentored by very early stage and also Series A investors at the very beginning of their development. Yeah. So UX, legal. So we do this for all our startups, and so at the end of the day, we get a lot of support from investors because they feel that, you know, that's one way to de-risk the uncertainty in a fast-growing market, and we give them good looks in terms of deal flow. So I won't go through this. We've done this with a lot of corporate companies, and we aim to do it more next year when we do venture building. Okay, so this is the investment committee. We got Dragon Capital, FPT Ventures, Hanwha. Yep, you're good guys. And I'd like to point out that there's a lot is actually, these are startups, and a lot is actually kind of business model innovation. So WisePass over there, it's an ex-Googler from France, a Vietnamese descent. He came back, started this company. So with WisePass, for $300 US a month, it's a lifestyle app. You get 1 bottle of alcohol every night at the top 50 bars in Ho Chi Minh City. Okay, 1 bottle, Chivas, Jack Daniels, vodka, white wine, right? And it means, how do you make money? So he thinks, membership subscription, you don't have to remind people to drink alcohol, right? So he started with that, and then he launched Set Lunches, right? And now it was very interesting because he can market it as a tool for alcohol brands, because alcohol brands cannot advertise. Now they know who's drinking what, when do they drink, right? And then they can use the platform to kind of push their bottles as well. So the brands are paying them, say, hey, I'm paying you $10,000, can you push Jack Daniels, for example, right? And for the corporates, now corporates buy it because it reduces the entertainment costs, right? They can give each corporate manager an account, and you just do 1 claim and expense at the end of the year, right? Just 1. You don't have to do it anymore. So it's really innovative business models are coming out there because it's just an exciting place, very open to new ideas. So if you're interested, in us. I don't have time to share a little more because I'm out of time. But if you're interested to find out more, we'll be at the networking later, or catch me around in this room. Okay, so thank you so much.
A round of applause to Adrian.